Linda, starting tomorrow, our parents are moving in with us. I bought the house with the yard, so no complaining if you're not a fan. You might end up sleeping outside, got it? On moving day, Michael, my husband, dropped the bomb about living with his parents. He also decided on this house without consulting me and left me to handle all the house hunting. It's like he sees me as a maid or something, thinking I don't have a say. So I said, fine, then I'll sleep in the yard from now on. But don't be surprised by who joins me. Why are you being so stubborn? Just do as you're told, like always. Don't worry, you won't regret it. Sleep tight, but don't choke on your own spit. Okay, those last words are on you. You'll regret this, mark my words. And with that, I started getting ready, picturing Michael's worried face. The next day, he came to the yard and immediately frowned when he saw the tent I had set up. He stopped in his tracks, looking puzzled as he approached. Linda, why are you pitching a tent? You said you'd sleep in the yard, so I'm just using my camping tent. It's spacious out here, I replied calmly, stepping out of the tent with a smile. Michael frowned even more and muttered, you'll regret this. Sleep however you like, but don't say I didn't warn you. He didn't think I actually sleep outside. You're ridiculous, you know. Even if you like camping, setting up a tent in your own yard is just embarrassing. Michael mocked with a smirk, but I stood my ground, ready for my comeback against him. My husband still had that smirk on his face, but inside I was quietly amused. Just then, my in-laws arrived. They seemed taken aback by the sight of the tent, whether they understood what was going on or not. I felt a bit relieved, hoping their presence might calm my husband down a bit. When I greeted them, they looked puzzled and asked about the tent. Linda, why is there a tent in the yard? Are you planning a camping trip? They inquired, clearly curious. Before I could respond, my husband jumped in. Oh, Linda wanted to sleep outside. She's a big fan of camping, you know, he said, smoothly lying through his teeth. I couldn't believe how composed he was while deceiving them. But my in-laws accepted it without much fuss, knowing my love for camping. Just be careful not to catch a cold, they said with concern before heading into the house. Now, go make dinner, and don't say anything unnecessary to my parents, all right? My husband resumed his usual commanding tone after the in-laws left, but I shot back, sure thing. I'll cook for 5 then. Can a housewife even count? It's just the 4 of us. You, me, and my parents. Stop being dense and start cooking. You're getting on my nerves. Grumbling, my husband made his way to the new house. Suddenly, he froze in shock as a man emerged from the tent, unzipping it slowly. The yard fell silent. My husband's face registered a mix of confusion and astonishment. He tried to speak but couldn't find the words. Sorry to intrude, the man said. Why is Jim here? What's happening? This man was my husband's boss, Jim, someone my husband couldn't underestimate. It was understandable that he was taken aback to see Jim coming out of the tent where I had slept. Could it be that Linda and Jim are having an affair? Remember what Linda said yesterday, don't regret whoever I sleep with. Is she referring to an affair? What do you mean? That's not possible. Jim just got here about 30 minutes ago. I also enjoy camping. I was simply waiting in the tent until Masayoshi woke up, my husband explained, his face draining of color as if he could hear the gravity of the situation. Our private conversation had been overheard by Jim. I had heard from Linda before, but I didn't want to believe until now that you were hiding your true nature and mistreating your wife. Jim spoke slowly and calmly, but his words carried a hint of anger towards my husband. Panic swept over my husband's face, and his body began to tremble. No, that's not it. I was just being a bit firm. It's not mistreatment or anything. Just firm, he stuttered, but it didn't seem convincing to me. There was a clear tone of malice and superiority in his words. What had Linda done to deserve this? Jim's voice grew increasingly heated, causing my husband to shake even more. The arrogance he had displayed earlier, mocking me, had vanished. He seemed like a mouse cornered by a cat, frozen in fear. I can't believe this, Michael. You do great work at the company, but to treat your wife like this, I'm frankly disappointed. I never meant to mistreat my wife. I've just been stressed lately with work not going well, and I guess I took it out on her, my husband said, sweat dripping down his face as he searched for excuses, his mind racing. Despite what Jim said earlier, my husband was highly respected at work, not just for his job performance but also for his character. If you didn't know better, you wouldn't believe he could treat his wife poorly. But both Jim and I knew the truth. all the things my husband was hiding, and Jim's visit today was connected to those secrets. Then Jim quietly mentioned a woman's name to my husband, Lily Smith. You're familiar with her, right? Yes, she works at a client I handle. Is there an issue with her? She's my wife. Immediately, my husband's eyes widened with shock and confusion, rendered speechless. His expression shifted instantly to one of surprise and fear. Jim stared at my husband with a cold gaze. Gathering his courage, my husband began to speak hesitantly. Lily is Jim's wife. But that can't be, you have different last names. Lily uses her maiden name at work. It's easier for everyone as she's referred to by the name they know. Many women at her workplace do the same. I didn't know anything, and I've made a terrible mistake. In truth, my husband was having an affair with Lily Shimamoto, unaware that she was his boss's wife. Jim had come today to address the affair. I was truly stunned when I learned about your affair, especially that the other woman was my wife. This isn't something that can be shrugged off as a misunderstanding, and regardless of who the other person is, having an affair is unacceptable, Jim stated firmly. You heard it from Linda. Hey Linda, how long have you known? Since when? I've known for several months, since around the time Michael started to withdraw after learning about my infertility, I responded. The catalyst for my husband's mistreatment was my infertility discovery. While undergoing treatments, my husband was unsupportive and distanced himself, leaving me feeling alone. One day, when he claimed he was on a business trip, I accidentally witnessed him leaving for a romantic getaway. That's when I decided to investigate his affair, leading me to discover that his mistress was his boss's wife. Empowered by this revelation, a thirst for vengeance ignited within me. Then my husband floated the idea of purchasing a house in the countryside. His proposal became the catalyst for propelling forward my revenge scheme. I closely monitored his actions and meticulously crafted my plan for retribution, which led to the current circumstances. Michael, you claimed you wanted children, so I decided to redouble my efforts with the infertility treatments. But instead of standing by me, he began to ignore me completely. You left me for Lily, didn't you? You just admitted you never meant to mistreat me, but you were doing it on purpose, weren't you? You were pushing me to my breaking point, aiming for a divorce. Keeping me in the dark about living with your parents was all part of the torment, wasn't it? What do you have to say? Every word dripped with fury as my husband stumbled over his response. I could see that I had hit a nerve. With a piercing stare, I locked eyes with my husband, while Jim's gaze conveyed a mixture of disappointment and disdain. My husband's face turned pale, and his body shook, but he pushed himself to speak, adamantly denying the truth. I admit I may have been tough on Linda, but I strongly reject the accusations of an affair. It's just a baseless claim from Linda and Jim. There's no evidence, right? Linda mentioned a romantic trip, but I simply ran into Lily by chance during a business trip. We had meetings and went for drinks because of work, but there was no affair. I understand, indeed, there's no evidence. We haven't prepared any, right? There's no proof, but you're definitely having an affair. Admit it and apologize to Jim first. Linda, enough now. I didn't have an affair. If you want me to confess, show me the evidence. Don't act all high and mighty and order me around. My husband erupted in anger, his words aimed at me without restraint. The tension in the air crackled with my husband's fiery rage, a clear sign that he felt cornered with nowhere to hide his true self. Unknowingly, he was digging his own grave. What's the matter, Michael? Why are you shouting like that? It's echoing inside the house, I remarked, bewildered by his outburst. Oh, isn't that gentleman over there JLI? I'm terribly sorry for causing a disturbance. Actually, I came today to discuss Michael's affair, Jim announced calmly. The in-laws were undoubtedly stunned by Jim's words. They stood frozen, mouths open in disbelief, as a heavy silence settled over the scene. After a tense 10 seconds, Michael's father-in-law cautiously spoke up. Is it true about the affair, Michael? I find it hard to believe Jim would joke about something like this. Can you explain so we can understand? Dad, it's not true. I'm innocent. Jim is just assuming I'm guilty without any evidence. I swear I haven't done anything like that. You can trust me. Linda, what's happening? I don't understand anything, Mother, Michael protested. I'm sorry to have startled you, but what Jim is saying is true. Michael has been having an affair, and the other woman is Jim's wife. Now, I will prove it, I stated firmly. With that, I pointed to a specific spot. Michael and the in-laws followed my gaze, but all they saw was the tent in the yard. Confusion etched their faces, but they were about to witness something shocking. "I'm so sorry," Lily apologized as she emerged from the tent. Jim hadn't arrived alone. Lily had accompanied him. Thus, the entire conversation had been overheard by Lily as well. Meeting Lily for the first time, the in-laws were startled to see an unfamiliar woman stepping out of the tent. Meanwhile, my ex-husband was profoundly shaken by the realization that his affair partner had been nearby all along. "We don't need evidence, Michael. Lily has already fully admitted to the affair." "Actually, we do have evidence, but having Lily confirm it seemed quicker. I also wanted to see your reaction, and you certainly revealed your true colors. Unknowingly, you were digging your own grave. Bringing Lily here, has she already told you everything?" Michael's question prompted Lily to nod silently. Once again, Michael's body trembled, and his face drained of color. "Father, Mother, as I mentioned earlier, I have been mistreated by Michael. I wasn't even informed about this living arrangement. I had to sleep in a tent in the yard because Michael ordered it. He treated me as disposable because of my infertility and chose to have an affair with Lily. I don't understand, Michael. You told us changing our environment might improve the chance of fertility treatments. Was that all a lie? You said you would support me, right, Michael? Instead of supporting me, you were planning to abandon me." I confronted, the disappointment and anger of my in-laws finally bringing Michael to his knees, where he prostrated himself on the ground, rubbing his forehead fiercely against the earth. "I'm truly sorry. I was shocked to discover Linda's infertility. Having children was my dream, so I thought if I couldn't have children with Lily, I'd need to remarry someone else. That's when I met Lily, thinking she could fulfill my dream." Michael trembled as he desperately confessed, seeming to realize that excuses wouldn't suffice anymore. Without lifting his forehead from the ground, he continued to apologize profusely. But then his body was abruptly thrown to the ground with a dull thud under the furious gaze of his enraged father-in-law. "Linda wanted children too, didn't she? Have you ever considered her feelings? Being unable to conceive, do you think of your wife as property to be discarded when no longer needed? What do you say, Michael? Answer me." My father-in-law's usual gentleness replaced by a rage I had never seen before. Yet his face betrayed a profound sadness. It was unthinkable that his beloved son could commit such inhumane acts behind the scenes and still attempt to justify them. "I've never been a parent, but the thought of my own child doing such things would tear me apart," my father-in-law expressed with anguish as Michael lay on the ground. His mother approached with a similarly pained expression. "Michael, I'm going to divorce you and claim alimony for the mental anguish you've caused," she declared, presenting the already filled-out divorce papers. Michael, still prostrate, took them. However, in a shocking turn, he retorted, "Dad's right. A wife is just property to me, disposable when no longer needed. Clearly, it's all Linda's fault. Had I known about her infertility, I wouldn't have married her. Discovering it after marriage feels like a fraud. What alimony? You, the infertile one, should be paying. Don't you dare." My father-in-law grabbed Michael by the collar again, ready to confront him physically, but I stepped in. "Linda, why stop? Are you planning to forgive Michael?" he questioned. "No, father. I will never forgive Michael. But I won't let you harm yourself over him. He's not even worth hitting now. Please let me handle this," I calmly responded, leading my father-in-law to slowly release Michael's collar. After taking a deep breath, I pulled out a piece of paper and addressed Michael. "So everything is my fault because I'm infertile, and you're the victim, right?" Michael was left speechless as I handed him the paper, which contained results he had never anticipated. "Me, infertile? I can't produce children." It turned out the cause of infertility wasn't solely mine, but also Michael's. I had requested him to provide a sample for testing, knowing that infertility isn't always due to the woman. The results diagnosed Michael with azoospermia. While there might be a chance for recovery with treatment, it seemed challenging. I had intended to inform Michael, but he was too preoccupied with his affair to engage in a proper conversation with me. Ironically, now was the first time we truly confronted each other after so long. "I don't believe this. Is this some kind of setup by Linda? Trying to frame me? It won't work," Michael protested. "It doesn't matter if you don't believe it. You'll eventually come to understand. My only desire is to sever ties with Michael and ensure he faces the consequences he deserves." Now, sign the divorce papers quickly, I urged. Are you serious? With that tone, it's gotta be a lie. Tell me it's a lie. Michael repeatedly reviewed the test results, his head in his hands. Jim, the in-laws, and I could only sigh deeply at his state. Lily appeared to be filled with regret as well. Leaving Michael behind, we stepped away from the new house, and Jim and his wife returned home to discuss further. The in-laws then apologized to me, expressing their regret. We might not have been aware, but we failed to see the pain Linda was going through. We don't expect forgiveness, but this is how we feel. We will do whatever we can for you. Even if you divorce Michael, we will always be on your side and ensure he takes responsibility. Just wait and see. There was no need for you to apologize. I was at fault too for not speaking up sooner and allowing myself to be pushed around. Plus, I almost caused you both a lot of trouble because of me. Actually here, I decided to reveal a fact I had kept hidden from my in-laws. I confessed, surprising them. But they chuckled at my thorough preparation, murmuring, "It's all Michael's doing." After finalizing the divorce with my husband, I returned to my parents' home. It didn't take long before I received frantic calls from my ex-husband. "Linda, what's happening? This is all you're doing, isn't it? Answer me." His voice left no room for negotiation. Even over the phone, I could sense his sheer desperation. Suppressing a laugh, I decided to reveal the truth. "Why so panicked? I don't know much except maybe that the new house you bought is defective." "Hey, stop joking around. I just realized it's uninhabitable because I've been too frantic to notice. What are you going to do about this?" "I'm not doing anything. You pushed the house hunting onto me, so I just followed your orders. You were the one who made the final decision to buy her, right? Is there a problem?" The decision to purchase the house with a yard was solely made by my husband, yet he dumped the entire search on me. At that point, I had already considered revenge, leading to my strategy of making him live in a defective house. You can check online for signs of a defective house, like uneven floors, ceiling checks, and door and window operations. I created a checklist and went to the viewings, choosing the property with the most issues. My ex-husband's reaction confirmed that my plan had indeed worked. The only miscalculation was his secret plan to live with my in-laws, which could have caused them great trouble. Thankfully, they now live peacefully elsewhere, away from him. "Linda, help me out. I can't afford to move with the alimony payments and I've lost my job. There's also the fertility treatment. I truly regret everything. I shouldn't have cheated. I should have valued you more." "So you only realized you were wrong after finding out you're infertile? Well, that's good for you. You should reflect on your regrets and start over. Good luck living alone." Wait. Weren't we married? Don't abandon me, please. Listen to me." His self-centered remarks nearly drove me to explode with anger. Done with him, I found any further interaction merely troublesome. Yet, I had to make my point clear. A wife is not property to be discarded when no longer needed, Michael. You said that, remember? Let me reiterate, you are no longer needed in my life. You're expendable. Live with your regrets forever. Goodbye. I could still hear his voice through the phone, but I hung up without a second thought and blocked the number. He probably learned the hard way that some actions are irreversible. As for me, I started a blog and created videos about camping, enjoying a side income while engaging in my hobby. Jim, now divorced, had more free time and occasionally joined me for camping trips or helped with my video projects. I'm truly grateful that Jim and my in-laws stood by me. When I expressed my gratitude, Jim said, "Ignoring such a wonderful woman like you, Michael, really baffled me. If you ever need help, feel free to reach out." Perhaps due to my vulnerable state, my heart skipped a beat. But it wasn't until years later that I realized this flutter was real. Yes, Jim and I ended up getting married. But that's a story for another time.